Professional football began as a runner's game, but it prospered and grew with the discovery of flight. Only one man commands the flight of a football. He is the quarterback. This is a story about the greatest quarterbacks who ever played in the National Football League. Men who earned fame and glory, each in his own way.
This is red, right, flip. 61, double shoot.
All right, 75 double choice. Flanker Argo out in K-go on 2.
At open 4 right, 29 Geo, slot drag. On the deuce.
Just red left, Penner, 57 wing delay, fullback corner on 1.
Red right, power 49 near Geo, it's on 2. It's on 2, ready, break.
No position in football requires as many different skills as quarterback. It requires a cool head
55!
And a tough body.
Here he comes.
Come on, Dean!
Well, I know it. You know, hell, I got a throwback here after a while.
Okay, let's do something with it!
In the history of the National Football League, many have played the position, but only a few can be called the best ever. Like Hollywood's matinee idols, pro football's quarterbacks draw the camera's eye with a magnetic allure. Their images combine arm with charm. These Gables and Grants of the gridiron don't leave footprints in cement, but a wristband leaves a similar impact on adoring fans. The best passers of the modern era are big box office, and their heroic identities are worthy of any movie epic. For 10 years, the Raiders quarterback played the role of a crafty snake. The main attraction in Baltimore was a sharpshooter called the Ruston Rifle. Cleveland's hero engineered more last-second rescues than Earl Flynn. And San Diego boasts an aerial ace who commands a daring dawn patrol. These stars furthered the tale of Golden Arms, glamour boys, and folk heroes that marked the evolution of the pro passing game. The tale began in 1937, when Sammy Baugh joined the Redskins and ushered in a new era for NFL offenses. In 1945, Baugh established an NFL single-season accuracy record by completing 70% of his passes, a standard that stood for nearly 40 years. This helped immortalize him as Slingin' Sam. In the 50s, Bob Waterfield aligned his legend with that of his wife, leading lady Jane Russell. Waterfield was the leading man of an explosive Rams offense that in 1950 averaged over 38 points a game, still an NFL record. Bob Waterfield's on-field Midas touch and his off-the-field golden boy image brought the pro quarterback further into the spotlight. During the 60s, the golden boy with the golden arm was the Redskins' fun-loving Sonny Jurgensen. It was a golden arm that worked in forward and reverse. Come game time, that arm worked in overdrive. Jurgensen's passes struck like lightning, and he left the game as the NFL's second-ranked quarterback of all time. Yet Washington, D.C. was too small for Sonny Jurgensen's big talents and his appetite for good times. He was perhaps better suited to the hustle and bustle of New York City. But in 1965, the town belonged to Joe Namath, whose dark eyes melted many a Manhattan lady. He earned the tag Broadway Joe and became pro football's ultimate glamour boy. His outrageous bad boy image fascinated millions who followed his after-dark exploits.
Sometimes they talk about drinking and conniving around with ladies and stuff. You know, it seems almost un-American to me for a bachelor not to, you know, go around having a drink with a lady now and then. And why all of a sudden that's become an evil in me, I don't know. But some people don't like it. Well, you can't please everybody. I'm just trying to get along, you know, just trying to get by. Look at that shot.
In 1967, the Jets' Namath became the first quarterback in pro football history to pass for over 4,000 yards in one season. It was 12 years before this feat was duplicated. He was a fiery competitor who met all challenges head-on. Namath was a young man on the move, catapulted by the speed with which he unloaded a football, the special zip in his arm, and an unwavering belief in his abilities.
I don't know where anybody else's head is. I don't know what kind of game they call. I feel that I've made very few mental errors in professional football over the last few years. I feel I can throw as well or better than anybody. And I think mentally, throwing the football, well, I feel confident I can play better than anybody that's ever played the position.
In 1968, he rashly predicted victory over heavily favored Baltimore in Super Bowl III. It was no empty boast. Namath passed for over 200 yards in the Jets' stunning win, the first ever for an AFL team. He earned MVP honors and respect for the other league. Joe Namath, outlandish and outstanding. Truly a trendsetter in every way. A powerful arm is always in fashion. And in 1984, a new golden boy basked in the spotlight. Dan Marino, in only his second NFL season, achieved a level of excellence previously thought to be unattainable. The Miami quarterback passed for over 5,000 yards. He threw 48 touchdown passes, an average of 3 per game, and 12 more than the old record. Pro football had never seen the likes of this kid's majestic arm.
I had Unitas at Baltimore, and we had a style. I had Greasy in Miami, and we had a style. And with Marino, he's attack. He's turn it loose. Marino's greatest asset is that he has great field presence. He sees the entire field. He has this tremendous strong arm. He's a lot like Bonacani was as a linebacker. It didn't take long for the thought to go from the mind to the feet. With Marino, it doesn't take long for the thought to go from the mind to the arm to the feet, whatever it takes to evade the rush and let go of the football.
Dan Marino's in the class of Joe Namath. He looks really slow and methodical. You release from your man and you think, oh God, I'm gonna kill him. And just as you get there, you notice his arm's going down. You see him pat the ball and you see his arm coming through the motion. You go, did he throw it or is that a trick?
At the tender age of 23, Dan Marino soared to the summit. This man-child had not merely shattered records. It was the manner in which he scaled the mountain. Marino made the toughest position in football look like simple child's play. The ease with which he performed so mightily was most imposing of all. Dan Marino, pro football's newest glamour boy, and the author of the greatest single season for a quarterback in NFL history. A quarterback's teammates can provide him with a crown of thorns or a jewel-studded garland. In the 70s, Terry Bradshaw and the Pittsburgh Steelers achieved royal status. But the odyssey began when a raw rookie inherited a team that couldn't keep pace with anyone.
Nothing greater happened to Terry Bradshaw than to go up to Pittsburgh and make Pittsburgh a winner. Team from 1-13, change it around, make it 13-1 or 14. You know, make them a winner.
His powerful arm suggested a bright future for both the quarterback and his struggling team.
How about that, huh?
In the first 2 games, every time we started dropping back, everything was real fuzzy, you know? And now it's just all sort of, you know, don't even worry about it. That's what I've always wanted to feel. I feel if I could ever get like that, everything would be all right.
It's going to get better.
Yeah, I mean, I was dropping back, and I could see the defense and see them going into the weak zone and everything. I could see the whole picture. I knew exactly where to go.
Yeah.
If that continues, you know, that's going to be great.
But greatness was interrupted by moments when Bradshaw looked like he was auditioning for Hee Haw. In the early years, miscues earned him ridicule from those who saw him as a little Abner in cleats. And Bradshaw was seized by a self-doubt that threatened to send his career crashing to the ground. Though he bounced back, he never shook the tag of Bayou Bumpkin. Indeed, he often seemed disoriented in Steelers black and gold, more suited to tattered knee pants and suspenders. But talented teammates helped Bradshaw find his bearings. The Pittsburgh Steelers were destined to become the greatest team of the 70s, and Bradshaw helped them fulfill their destiny. Bradshaw benefited from a stable of swift and graceful receivers who in turn benefited from his awesome, arching rockets. Once, these bombs had been launched by a vulnerable child man. Now, they exploded from a man of substance. In 1974, Bradshaw emerged as a confident, consistent, and, yes, intelligent leader and passer. Bradshaw not only found himself, he and the Steelers found each other. Together, they won a record 4 Super Bowls. During the 70s, there was no football team on earth more consistently powerful than Pittsburgh's Men of Steel. In that grandest of football spectacles, the Super Bowl, Terry Bradshaw rose to the magnitude of the event 4 times. In the Steelers' Super Bowl 13 win against Dallas, he established a single-game record by throwing 4 touchdown passes. Super Bowl 14 brought victory over Los Angeles, and Bradshaw's passing earned him MVP honors for the 2nd straight year. With this triumph, Bradshaw had won twice as many Super Bowls as any quarterback in NFL annals. It had taken a while for Terry Bradshaw to attain maturity, but once he and the Pittsburgh Steelers matured together, they carved themselves a special place in pro football history.
Let's see if we can't time this thing out.
Open 4 right, 50 slot corner, Y center on 2.
Hey!
That's a great call.
In 1961, the Minnesota Vikings drafted quarterback Fran Tarkenton. Maybe his offensive line was bad, or maybe they just wanted to move aside and watch him like everyone else. Whatever the reason, it forced Tarkenton to invent maneuvers that no one had ever seen before. Fran's antics were disdainfully termed scrambling, an unpredictable improvisation that could salvage success on plays that clearly should have been failures. Tarkenton's offense added color to the game. But because his style was so different, purists regarded him as no more than a bumblebee of a quarterback who would, in due time, buzz himself right out of the league. Viking head coach Norm Van Brocklin was considered an offensive genius, yet even he could not have designed on paper what Tarkenton and his teammates designed on the run. It was this logic-defying ability that caused his head coach to have nightmares.
To our surprise, Francis had a very average arm, but he had ability to run. And since he has this ability, every time he gets in trouble a little bit, he takes off running from one side to the other. Well, there's a standing joke on our team by our linemen that if they miss their man, just to wait there because Francis will be coming back and he'll bring his man back to him. People have described Tarkenton as a scrambling type of quarterback. I suspect that that's about the best name you could put on him.
Because of Fran, the Vikings were exciting, even when they lost. Minnesota was often undone by the unpredictable play that made them unique. It has been suggested that a quarterback gets too much credit when his team wins and too much blame when they lose. After 7 years of such suggestions, Fran Tarkenton was traded to the New York Giants, where he was forced to test a personal belief.
And I think a quarterback has got to have an arrogant quality about him because he's going to get shot at by so many people. And if he's paranoid, then he'll never make it. Because during his career, he's going to have times when his teammates are going to doubt him, his coaches doubt him, the fans doubt him, the press doubts him. And he's got to just wipe all that away, and he's got to be arrogant enough to say, you know, I'm good, and I know what I'm doing, and I'm going to press on.
Tarkenton could not make the Giants a champion, but he did make them entertaining. Like always, Fran played every play as if it were a lifeboat drill. The results were usually completions or touchdown passes that would in time make him famous. In 1972, after 5 productive seasons in New York, Fran was surprisingly traded back to his original team, the Minnesota Vikings. No longer an expansion joke, this was a veteran-laden champion that was less concerned with style than results. And they immediately extended a free rein to the most imaginative quarterback who has ever played pro football. Like all Tarkenton-led teams, the Vikings could score. But number 10 was still being criticized for the risk his mobility presented. It was his elusiveness that made him a prized catch of every defender who ever hounded his heels, and a gift that also earned him the respect of those very same men.
Fran was exceptionally quick. He had that ability to scramble, and we always thought he had eyes in the back of his head because he would make that move where he would reverse his heel just when you were just getting ready to tackle him. It was the best timing I'd ever seen.
People didn't want to believe that I could succeed being the type of quarterback or a different quarterback that I was.
Set! Forward, 23!
And it took them a longer time to accept me as something more than a freak quarterback.
Of all the knocks against Fran Tarkenton, none endured longer and was less deserved than the one questioning his ability to throw a football.
The name of the game is passing, and I think the whole thing of the arm is really overrated. I mean, I can throw the ball far enough, I can throw it hard enough, I can throw it with touch.
During his 18-year career, no one completed more passes for more yards and more touchdowns than Francis Asbury Tarkenton.
Flash wide to the left, Gilliam in the slot to the left. First and goal from the 7. Fran rolls to the right, dumps it out, caught by Foreman, touchdown! Fran Tarkenton's record-breaking 291st career touchdown pass. 2 of them to Foreman the 7.
No quarterback ever played in more games. He started in his first and in his last one, finishing with 342 touchdown passes and over 47,000 yards passing. He accomplished everything a quarterback could do, except win a Super Bowl. Although he never wore pro football's championship crown, his durable and enthusiastic career made him one of the best ever, and a remarkable jewel in the game's history. The World Championship of Professional Football. The dream of every quarterback who has ever stood over center. During the 1960s, Bart Starr of the Green Bay Packers developed into a great quarterback who led a great team to 5 NFL titles. The same was true of Bob Greasy, number 12, who directed the Miami Dolphins to consecutive Super Bowl victories in the early 70s. If the true measure of a quarterback is how many times he leads his team to the championship, then certainly one of the best ever is Otto Graham of the Cleveland Browns.
The quarterback is the catalyst, and Otto Graham played the role of a quarterback, which is the most important position insofar as having a team win for many years, and that's one of the reasons I say that Otto Graham was the greatest player I ever had.
In every season from 1946 to 1955, Otto Graham quarterbacked the Browns to a league or conference championship. Though he never called his own plays, Graham's ability to execute Paul Brown's system made him a winner. For Yelverton Abraham Tittle, it was his will to win that made him special. Y.A. was a tough, persistent operator for the San Francisco 49ers in the early 1950s. As a passer, number 14 was nearly an artist. Yet ironically, he is remembered best for a gimmick pass called the alley-oop.
I never thought as a quarterback I'd ever resort to throwing an end-over-end lob-lolly pass straight up in the air and hope that somebody would come down and grab it for a touchdown, but that's what the alley-oop pass was. We had a receiver on our team named R.C. Owens that was a basketball player by trade. R.C. used to say, throw it as high as you can, straight up in the air, and please put a wobble on it because he could judge it better.
In 1957, Tittle used the alley-oop to become the NFL's most valuable player.
10 seconds left. The Lions lead it, 31-28. All right, again, Owens flanked to the right. This has got to be the alley-oop. There is no time for anything else. Tittle throws. Owens is double-teamed. He's going downfield near the goal line. He goes up. He's got it! A great catch!
In 1961, at the age of 34, Tittle was traded to the New York Giants, where his career took a dramatic turn upward. During his first 3 years as a Giant, Y.A. twice led the league in passing, and his 36 touchdown passes in 1963 set the NFL single-season record. Twice he was named most valuable, and in one game against the Redskins, Tittle threw 7 touchdowns. Records and awards he had in abundance, but what Y.A. wanted most was an NFL championship. For 15 years, he committed his body and soul to this desperate chase, and Ahab, mightily pursuing his great white whale. In 1963, Tittle stepped out of a hospital bed to play the Chicago Bears in the NFL championship. It was to be his last chance to capture his white whale. Sadly, however, courage was not enough. Though his will to win earned him a place in the Hall of Fame, Y.A. Tittle was forced to retire in 1964 without the one crown he treasured most. Like a shadow, the will to win takes many different shapes. For San Francisco's Joe Montana, the appearance is quiet and unassuming. His small frame, soft features, and easy smile belie a fierce desire to excel. In the 1981 NFC Championship game, Montana's indomitable spirit produced the drive that led to the catch that led to victory.
This season, the outcome of the Super Bowl berth hangs in the balance. He has the ball. Montana rolling out the right, looking toward the end zone, throwing under pressure, throws his pass, caught by Clark. Clark got a touchdown. Dwight Clark has it. It's a touchdown for the 49ers.
Dramatically, Montana had summoned the will to perform in the toughest of all spots, the pressure of do or die. It's a quality the ever-relaxed quarterback has demonstrated time and again, in college and probably well before that.
He wasn't a great player at Notre Dame just by passing through town. His greatness shows up. It showed up there, and it showed up since he probably first put on a male supporter.
Unflappable when the game is on the line, Montana possesses another trait that is perhaps unmatched in the NFL. It's the escapability factor, the knack of eluding the pass rush and throwing accurately on the run.
Joe's quick on his feet and decisive. He can
avoid the push of the pass rush. And so his movement is extremely efficient, much more efficient than maybe anyone in the league.
Montana, unlike Tarkenton, is not a scrambler. His movements are more controlled, more precise. It is this ability that makes number 16 the most efficient quarterback in pro football. Montana is, quite simply, a winner. His greatness goes beyond physical performance. He has that rare capacity to reach deep within himself and bring forth just a little bit more in crucial moments. Nowhere is this better reflected than in the playoffs, where Montana has been brilliant.
Here's Montana rolling out the right side, looking toward the end zone, now throwing, fires, it's caught by
In Super Bowl 19, Montana quarterbacked the 49ers to the World Championship of Professional Football for the second time in 4 years. It was the kind of performance one has come to expect from this quiet, restrained man whose unconquerable spirit has taken him to the top of the football world. A quarterback sets the tempo for his teammates. His guidance must strike rhythms both subtle and stormy. Few mastered this as deftly as Bobby Lane. Though his arm was suspect, he inspired less by his passing than by his passion. A passion for winning.
I'm one person who hates to lose. I don't care if we're playing marbles or gin rummy or what we're doing. I like to be a winner. I did have a bad arm, there's no question about it, but it doesn't really count how pretty the pass is. But one time I was at the Pro Bowl game, and I was there with 4 quarterbacks, Van Brocklin, Tittle, Eddie LeBaron, and myself. I could throw it just as far as any of the rest of them, and when I wanted to, it could be just as pretty. But you throw a touchdown pass, I don't care if it wobbles or goes end over end, it counts 6.
Lane directed the Detroit Lions to NFL championships in 1952 and 1953.
You feel great walking down the street when you're a champion. You don't have to stand in line for picture shows. You get a free pass and you get in first. It's a great feeling.
By instilling that feeling in others, Lane attained greatness. Norm Van Brocklin's strong desire to win was matched by an arm that made him the NFL's leading passer 3 times. In 1951, he led the Los Angeles Rams to an NFL championship as those who played with the Dutchman rose up to match his tenacity with their own. In 1960, he ignited the Philadelphia Eagles to a championship showdown with Green Bay. It was the last game he ever played, but his magnificent obsession to be #1 had not diminished, and Norm Van Brocklin became the only quarterback in history to lead 2 different teams to NFL championships. Roger Staubach's leadership skills were nurtured at the U.S. Naval Academy. Staubach's daring scuttled many a foe and earned him a Heisman Trophy. When he joined the Dallas Cowboys in 1969, he reverted to old instincts. Tom Landry knew Staubach had much to learn.
His running ability when he first came in the league was really a cover-up from lack of experience. There's no way a quarterback, until he learns to read defenses, until he learns to move a defense around and do the things he wants to do from the pocket, until he learns that, then he's going to rely on what his best quality is. And Roger's greatest quality when he first started was running.
As best qualities go, it was very good indeed. Staubach was a bold and agile runner who became known as Roger the Dodger. Staubach's running ability was but one manifestation of the competitive fire that burned beneath his cool surface.
I'm aggressive to a degree. As a quarterback, you got to keep your poise. You can't get overly emotional because you've got a lot on your mind. You've got to do a lot of things mentally to control the game, but you've got to be competitive, aggressive, and give everything you have physically.
Roger the Dodger gave way to a strong-arm passer who would become the top-ranked quarterback in NFL history. There was nothing mystical about Staubach's transformation, but there was magic in the way his teammates performed for him. Staubach became a worthy inheritor to the legacy established by Lane and Van Brocklin. During his 10-year career, he led the Cowboys to 10 consecutive winning seasons and 2 world championships. Staubach's incredible courage was also inspirational. Few have endured such brutal punishment in the athletic arena. Cowboy fans pronounced many a last rite for their fallen hero. But resiliency made him a winner.
You know, a guy that they call a winner isn't someone that's going to win all the time. But man, when he's down, he's going to bounce back up with everything he has when he gets the chance. And boy, you bounce back when things aren't going your way.
The irrepressible Staubach generated 23 come-from-behind victories, 14 of them in the final 2 minutes or in overtime. In a 1975 playoff game at Minnesota, the Cowboys were reduced to a wing and a prayer.
Well, the Cowboys need a miracle, as we said. 2nd and 10, Cowboys from the 50. Again, Staubach has him in the shotgun formation. Roger takes the snap, bumps and watches. He's going long, down the near sideline for Drew Pearson. Pearson makes the catch at the 5, touchdown! Would you believe it?
They had great faith in him. They never thought they were out of it as long as Roger was throwing the ball. From that standpoint, he was something special.
Special indeed are those quarterbacks whose deeds and desire have inspired greatness in others.
I want to present to you John Constantine Unitas.
On July the 31st, 1979, the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, inducted the greatest quarterback who ever played the game. From his bristle-bush haircut to his high-top shoes, no one ever looked quite like Johnny Unitas. But then nobody else ever played like Unitas either. He was the most daring, deadliest passer who ever played pro football, and the subject of one of the most improbable Cinderella stories ever told. Drafted 9th by the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1955, Unitas was overlooked and forced to spend most of the camp playing catch with owner Art Rooney's kids. Cut from the squad that summer, he spent a season playing semi-pro ball before signing with the Baltimore Colts in 1956 for $7,000. By mid-season, number 19 was a starter. In only his second season, Unitas made the Pro Bowl. Like all great quarterbacks, he could communicate his intense desire to win to the rest of the team. In 1958, Unitas led the Colts to the Western Conference title. Ahead lay the NFL championship, the New York Giants, and a step into pro football history. The largest television audience of its time, 50 million, tuned in to sold-out Yankee Stadium. There, a 25-year-old quarterback demonstrated the poise, skill, and imagination that would make him the best ever. Tied at 17, Unitas put together one of the drives that would become his trademark during the first sudden death overtime in championship history.
Up over the ball, come the Baltimore Colts. Unitas calling out the signals. Oh, 25. Unitas gives to Amici. The Colts are the world champions. The most dramatic finish in professional football.
Later called the best football game ever played, this epic thrust national prominence upon pro football and made a legend of the man with the golden arm. There were many pillars for the Unitas legend to stand on, but none more important than his right arm. For 18 years, his convincing pump fakes froze secondaries, allowing him to place the ball on his receiver's fingertips.
The information, of course, that is more valuable than anything is the information that you receive from your own players or your own receivers. Calling a pass play is set up primarily on information that they give me.
Unitas used this information and his talented receivers to pass for over 42,000 yards and 290 touchdown passes, standards by which all other quarterbacks would be measured. However, his records and achievements gave no indication of the games he won or influenced by the sheer force of his personality. In each game in which he appeared, something dramatic and exciting happened, despite the fact that he was the bullseye for every defensive unit he faced. His brand of courage gave him a power of leadership that words alone could not have done. It is his special mark that, although many are compared to John Unitas is never compared to anyone else.
2 plays. First play, split right. 40 series right. Second play, be a split right, fullback draw. Both of them on run. Ready?
The Colts won the NFL championship 3 times under Unitas, and 3 times he was named the league's most valuable player. For 5 years, in 47 straight games, Unitas threw at least 1 touchdown pass per game, pro football's equivalent of Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. Other quarterbacks have won more championships or compiled larger statistics, but none ever fit all the requirements of pro football's most demanding position as well as Johnny Unitas, the best ever.